Hello everyone. The title of this poster is Verbal Instructions and Feedback Enhance Motor Learning During Post-Stroke Gait Retraining. Stroke is the leading cause of adult disability, and individuals post-stroke, even at discharge from rehab, have a whole array of impairments in their walking patterns, ranging from decreased push-off, foot drop, kinematic and kinetic asymmetries, and slowed walking speed. FAST-FES is a well-studied novel intervention that targets some of these post-stroke gait deficits by using fast treadmill walking in combination with functional electrical stimulation delivered to ankle muscles. 12 weeks of FAST-FES have been shown to induce improvements in clinical walking function and energy cost in people with stroke. However, FAST-FES and several other interventions that are commonly used in clinical practice have not been as well studied in the context of whether or not a single training session induces within-session improvements in performance and a cross-session retention of motor learning in people post-stroke. Also, verbal instructions and feedback are commonly used by rehab clinicians to enhance learning, and faded feedback, variable practice structure are strategies that have been used in context of primarily upper limb movements and motor control studies. However, there's a gap in terms of studying motor learning mechanisms and processes for clinically relevant interventions such as FAST-FES and for clinical populations such as people with stroke, with focus on gait or locomotor patterns as the target. So the objective of our study was to evaluate strategies that can enhance motor learning during FAST-FES training. And we asked whether or not the incorporation of individual specific instructions provided by a physical therapist, a trained neurorehab clinician during FAST-FES training sessions would augment motor learning of gait biomechanics. And we hypothesized that verbal feedback provided by a physical therapist would improve learning of the gait biomechanics patterns that are targeted by FAST-FES treatment. In terms of the methods, this was a repeated measures crossover comparison of two kinds of gait training sessions, and it was a comparison of single sessions of training. This table shows the characteristics of individuals post-stroke that were included in this study. This schematic shows an overview of our study design. So we have FAST-FES training session, which is the control training session. And for each training session, before and after, there's a pre and post gait test, which is a 30-minute test at self-selected speed. 24 hours later, there's a retention test at that same self-selected speed. For FAST-FES training, this schematic just shows that there are 5 6-minute bouts with intermittent periods with and without FES, shown by those shaded boxes. Stimulations delivered to plantar flexor muscles to enhance push-off during late stance phase, and dorsiflexor muscles to restore foot drop during the swing phase. During the second kind of training, which was delivered after a gap of at least 3 weeks, FAST-FES was delivered in the very similar pattern as shown in the control session, but on top of that, in addition, a physical therapist came in and gave individualized verbal instructions and feedback. The feedback was given for 6 minutes throughout the bout for the first bout, and then it was gradually faded over the course of the session in a faded frequency format. And these verbal instructions were targeted to, they were not prescribed or pre-written, but they were targeted to the variables that FAST-FES is designed to target. And the dependent variables in our study were 3: push-off integral, trailing limb angle, and ankle angle at initial contact, which measures foot drop or landing patterns at heel strike. In terms of our results, these bar plots show the summary of the 3 time points, pre, post, and retention, shown with 3 different colors for those 2 kinds of training, FAST-FES, FF, and FAST-FES with individualized verbal feedback given by a PT, shown by FF plus PT. So if we use this graph as an example for TLA, which was one of our dependent variables, if there was within session learning, we would expect to see an increase from pre to post. And we do see a significant increase in TLA for the FFPT training type. We would also, if there's retention of learned patterns, at the 24-hour test, we would expect to see a significant increase, and we see that for TLA, for FFPT. In contrast, for the control intervention, we don't see any significant improvements from pre to post or at retention. For POI, there was an interaction between the two, and overall, FAST-FES showed trends for greater values of POI at post and retention compared to pre. Ankle angle initial contact did not show any within or across session retention for either intervention or training type. However, interestingly, we found this decrement, this significant decrease in ankle angles, so more plantar flexion or more foot drop at post versus pre, irrespective of training type. And we think that this may be related to or may have to do with fatigability of the ankle dorsiflexion muscles. For these graphs here, we just show the within session change scores on the top panel and the retention change scores on the bottom panel. Higher values above 0, shown by these arrows here, would indicate an improvement. And when we compare FFPT to FF for TLA, consistent with what we saw for the time courses shown before, we see a significantly greater retention for FFPT compared to FAST. Also, the effect sizes shown on the right axes show that for POI and TLA, FFPT has a moderate to high effect size for greater induction of learning, both within session and retention, compared to FAST-FES. So to summarize, we showed that when we incorporate individual specific verbal instructions provided by a clinician in the context of a FAST-FES standardized training session, we're able to demonstrate significantly greater motor learning, shown by within and across session retention for the FFPT compared to the FF session. Verbal feedback, therefore, which is already commonly used, continues to show promise and enhancement of learning even at the level of a single session. Also, we observed this decrement of ankle angle within a training session, and this might suggest that there's need for future studies to study interactions between learning and fatigue in context of interventions such as FAST-FES. Thank you.